Alright, so got something a little wacky that I'm going to be doing today. So got this Resin Crete, and I've got this bottle of whiskey, and I got to thinking, I wonder what would happen if instead of using water to mix my Resin Crete with, what if I use whiskey? So I'm not sure how this is going to turn out, if it's even going to work. Because even though, yes, there is water in whiskey or any kind of liquor, pretty much. What I have here is 101 proof, which is 50.5% alcohol. So a little more than half of it is alcohol. And I don't really know precisely what is in Resin Crete. So I don't know how the alcohol is going to affect it. I mean, it may not cure at all. It may cure super quick. You could speculate, because maybe the alcohol will speed up the absorption of the water. I don't know. Or it may break down whatever's in here, as alcohol tends to do with some substances. So color-wise, I don't think this is going to do really much, if anything, because it's really hard to color this. It's really hard to color Resin Crete, and this isn't, while it's a nice light brown, it's not really dark enough. I don't think it's going to affect the color at all. Really what I want to see is, will it cure? How long does it take to cure? Is it going to be as strong as normal Resin Crete when it does cure, if it cures? So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and mix it up, and I'm just going to do a coaster, because, you know, it's kind of fitting to do a coaster if you're going to make it with whiskey. Also, I think, you know, if it does turn out good, I think that would be a really cool novelty. Like to have a coaster made with whiskey, or, you know, and you can use it if you're drinking whiskey, or you could maybe use wine. I don't have any wine. That may or may not work. It's got less alcohol, so may work better than whiskey. I mean, you could do beer, whatever. Maybe even like fruit juice or something. I don't know. But I want to see. I want to see how using something other than just regular water will affect the curing of the Resin Crete. So, got 100 grams of Resin Crete, 30 grams of whiskey, and I'm just going to get started here. So I'm going to pour about half of this in. And then I'm going to pour about half the whiskey in, because alcohol tends to thin things out. So I'm wondering if I need the full 30 milliliters at all. Sorry, 30 grams at all for this mixture. And actually, in that little bit, there is a bit of color change. It's gone from a pure white to more of a cream kind of color. But still, it's more or less white. Let's get the rest of this in here, because I'm wondering if I need the whole 30 grams of whiskey at all. And I think I do. This is rather thick. Let's just dump that in there. Maybe I should have just dumped the whole thing in to begin with. But it does seem to mix up just like Resin Crete. Certainly smells like whiskey. And yeah, it does seem to be mixing up just fine. It's actually feels a little thick, but when you let it run off, it's not really all that thick. I might have some clumps in the bottom. Maybe that's what's making it feel thicker when I stir. And hopefully this will cure up nicely and we'll have a nice bourbon scented coaster. Again, it would be interesting to try this with other drinks, like maybe wine. I know there's a lot of wine drinkers out there. I don't really care too much for wine. I do prefer whiskey. I feel like, I wonder how much of the smell, how much of the scent is going to be in the coaster after it cures. Certainly the alcohol smell will go away because it'll evaporate out. But I wonder how much of the just regular whiskey smell will be there. This actually pours just as nice as if I mixed it with water. Now I'm glad this isn't too thick, because what I do not want to do is try to pop any bubbles with a lighter or a torch. Again, with a silicone mold, you don't want to use a torch anyway, but I don't even want to take a lighter to this, because this being 50% alcohol, pretty certain it will go up in flames if I take an open flame to it. So we don't want that. Again, it's, you know, just the slightest bit of off-white. You can barely see any color in there at all. Just looks a little somewhat cream colored. Bit of a yellowy brown hue to it, but all in all, it's still more or less white. So I'm going to let this sit really for as long as it takes, because I don't know, I can just about guarantee this is going to affect the curing process. Whether it cures faster or slower, I don't know. But I'm going to keep checking back, and I'll just keep kind of tapping on it and seeing if it's cured or not. However long it takes. And yeah, once it's cured, hop back on the video and we'll look at the results. Alright, so it worked. But there's a few there were a few issues here. So first of all, as you can see, when I first took it out of the mold, it started crumbling off. Now, it wasn't fully cured when I took it out of the mold. And the reason I took it out before it was fully cured is because, well, I should say, I took it out after about 18 hours, and it wasn't fully cured yet. So this, in total, took about probably 36 hours, you know, day and a half, to fully cure and harden. It did fully cure and harden, though. It's, nice and hard there, just like Resin Crete. But I took it out of the mold because since it was taking so long to cure, I figured if I could get more air exposure to it, it might, you know, dry out quicker. Which I guess it kind of did. But, so first of all, as you can see, it made a mess of my mold here, which is not a problem. I can clean that right out. But also what happened is it started, after it started kind of getting a little bit cured, it turns into kind of this putty kind of consistency, or kind of like clay. And it also started to rise up in the middle, like pull away from the mold at the, you know, at the center, and it kind of bowed upwards in the middle. And so when I pulled it out, it was still pretty flexible, and so I set it flat on surface and pushed down in the middle. Now, as you may be able to see, that did put a crack in it. Now it doesn't seem like it went all the way through, so that's good. But so I think with a little practice and a different kind of mold, I can get it to work better, because the little bit that I left in the mixing cup turned out perfectly fine. It didn't bow upward or have any cupping at all. It stayed perfectly true to the form of the cup. And I think that might be because, you know, the cup is a little more rigid. It's not so flexible. With the silicone mold, it's a lot more flexible, and the stuff has more chance to kind of move around in there. I don't know. I don't know if that's what it was, or maybe the bowing upward that it did had something to do with maybe there was too much surface area exposed to the air and it dehydrated it quicker. I just don't know exactly why it did that. But the stuff that was in the bottom of the mixing cup turned out fine, perfectly good. It actually still kind of smells like whiskey. And the coaster really does. It's been a few days now since it was fully cured. I just now had time to do this part of the video. It did take on a little bit of color. Just kind of an off-white now, I guess, from, you know, the color in the whiskey. But the first 2 or 3 days, you could really smell the whiskey on there. So I'm going to see how strong it is. Now this is pretty thin, so this should break easy no matter what. And I know it's not, I don't see it being any stronger than regular just resin crete mixed with water, but I want to see how weak it is. So we'll kind of, yeah. That's pretty thin though, so let's try the coaster. Now keep in mind it is already cracked, so maybe I'll try to do it at an angle where, not bad. Weaker than regular resin crete, but if you were to seal it with UV resin or something, I don't think it would be a problem. And again, I mean, you know, if you're just using it as a coaster or a decorative item or whatever, occasional use or whatever, and you're careful with it, it probably ain't going to break. Now, I do feel like it being slightly weaker and the funky way that the coaster cured up almost certainly had to do with the alcohol content of the whiskey. Like I said, it's just a touch more than 50% alcohol. So almost certainly the alcohol had probably everything to do with why it took so long to cure and why it kind of, this one went a little bit sideways on me. So with that said, I think, and maybe in the future I'll buy like a small container of wine or whatever and try it with wine, because wine has way less alcohol in it. So I think wine probably has like, I don't know, like 12 to 20% alcohol, if even. I don't really know. I don't drink wine. I hardly ever drink at all, except for special occasions. But so it's probably got like less than half the alcohol content of this. So I think the experiment would have fared a lot better if I used something with less alcohol, like wine or maybe beer. Beer the smell might be a little for some people. So maybe not beer, but wine. And I think with wine, you would get some color to it. If you get like red wine or whatever, you would get some color. Obviously the red would probably turn more pink in the resin crete. But with all that said, I do think this is worth more exploration and experimentation. Maybe not with, you know, something with higher alcohol content, but I think with wine or maybe a liquor with lower alcohol content, like Jägermeister, that would be interesting. It's darker, so you would probably get more color out of it. and I believe that's only like 35% alcohol. 30, it's a little bit less alcohol. So with that said, also, I may have fared a lot better if I did like half of this and half water. Maybe. But then, I wouldn't have got so much of the color, and then, I don't know. But with all this, I feel like I wanted to do this because I thought it would be kind of interesting to make a coaster out of, like, a drink. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be alcoholic drink, just your favorite drink, Coca-Cola or whatever. And that would really give you some color. Actually might end up a little gray, because Coca-Cola's almost black. No, it would probably be a light brown, maybe. I don't know. But I think it can be done with pretty much any drink. Again, as long as you don't have too much alcohol in it. But, yeah, I just think the idea of having a coaster made out of the drink that's sitting on it, I think it's kind of a neat little idea. But anyway, that's all for today. Like I said, I may try the wine thing somewhere down the road. If I can find I don't want to spend a bunch of money on wine, so it'll be cheap wine if I do it. But I think this is kind of a doable thing. Again, maybe not with such a strong liquor. Also, I do wonder if, this was straight out of the freezer when I did this, as it is now. I keep it in the freezer. So I wonder if that might have had something to do with the curing process. Though I do feel like it would have cooled or warmed up to room temperature within a couple hours. So I don't know if that was what caused it to take so long. But again, it took like a day and a half to fully harden. But it does work. And so I think it requires further investigation. And we'll see. So anyway, that's the video. Hope you enjoyed it. And I'll see you next time.